What if your entire life was a lie and you were given a second chance to fix everything? This is the story of Revenge of the Iron-Blooded Sword Hound, a brutal tale of betrayal, war, and rebirth. In a world where humans and demons fought for decades in a devastating conflict known as the Age of Destruction, countless lives were lost and only the strongest survived. Among them was a weapon disguised as a man, a loyal hound of the Baskill family, a man who carried out the darkest missions in silence. His name was Vikir van Baskill, but after dedicating his entire life to the family, he was betrayed, framed as a traitor, and executed by the very people he served. However, just when death should have been the end, something impossible happened. He woke up again, not as a grown warrior, but as a newborn child, back at the very beginning of his life. And this time, he remembered everything. Now the story begins. The Age of Destruction had come to an end. For decades, humans and demons clashed in a merciless war that destroyed entire nations and left the world in ruins. At last, humanity emerged victorious, but on the very day victory was written into history, a severed head hung at the gates of the Baskill estate. Vikir van Baskill, the illegitimate son of the Baskill family, a shadow used for the family's dirtiest missions. The hunting hound of Baskill. From the moment he was born, Vikir's life was nothing but struggle. A bastard child of a concubine. Unlike his noble half-siblings, he was marked as lesser than the rest, and because of that, he had to fight for everything. Harder, longer, bloodier. He became a spy, an assassin, a kidnapper, and a tool for war. Over 500 dangerous missions were carried out in the name of his family. And yet, when peace finally arrived, he was discarded, branded a traitor, and accused of working with demons. He was sentenced to death without mercy. As the blade came down, Vikir gritted his teeth. He did not want to die. He wanted to live. And in that instant, everything changed. He found himself somewhere unknown. His body was weak, fragile, and completely powerless. There was no mana. No strength, nothing. Only the body of a newborn child. Then he realized the truth. He had been reborn at the moment of his birth, inside the Baskill family, a place where survival was not guaranteed even for children. A familiar voice echoed through the nursery. There are not any that look useful. Hugo le Baskill, the patriarch of the family, the man who would one day order his execution. Vikir tried to move, but he was trapped in a newborn body, helpless and powerless. But inside his mind, rage burned. He forced himself to stay calm. He remembered his past life, used, discarded, and executed after hundreds of missions. But not this time. This life would be different. Then the order came. Move the children to the Cradle of Swords, a brutal rite of passage where newborns are thrown into a maze of blades. At the end lies the River Styx, a sacred river that grants power to those who survive. Vikir moved. His small body pushed through the blades. Pain covered his body, but he did not stop. He had endured worse in his previous life. He used the blades instead of avoiding them, forcing himself forward. Blood marked his path. He focused only on reaching the river first. Finally, he arrived. The River Styx. Without hesitation, he jumped in. His body was consumed by pain as the water entered every wound. It felt as if his body was being rebuilt. Every injury, every fracture, every weakness was being rewritten. But he endured. He refused to surface. He would not fail again. He held onto a stone and stayed underwater until voices echoed above him. He was going to die. Take him out. Stop this. Then a final voice came. Come up now. Hugo le Baskill, the man who had killed him in his past life. But this time, Vikir refused to obey. He tightened his grip and stayed beneath the water. And then he rose. Not in surrender, but on his own terms. He broke the surface, alive. The guards panicked, but Hugo only stared. Then a rare smile appeared on his face. Look at this kid. His teeth already grew back. He collapsed. Hugo was very satisfied with my performance in Sword Cattles. Suddenly his eyes opened in a dark room. He thought, right now, I need to use this time to sharpen my canines silently. And when the time comes for me, I'll rip your heads off. But something unusual happened. His nanny startled and she pulled out a box. Large, heavy, and unknown even to her. She placed it inside Vikir's cradle, then left immediately. Vikir stared at it. He had no memory of this from his past life. Nothing like this ever happened. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Then, Triak, the box moved. Vikir's eyes sharpened. Two heads slowly emerged from inside. Snakes, black, thick-bodied, triangular-headed, bloody mambas. A venom so deadly that victims died before taking 7 steps. A rare assassination tool. And now, placed inside a newborn nursery. Vikir understood instantly. So this is how children died here. Not accidents. Not fate. Assassinations hidden in silence. Inside the family itself, the snakes slithered forward. Closer. Closer. Vikir didn't panic. He didn't cry. He didn't move away. Instead, he reached out. His tiny hands shot forward. He grabbed both snakes by the neck. Cleanly. Precisely. The snakes struggled instantly. Fangs snapped. Bodies twisted. But it was useless. His skin had already been reforged by the River Styx. Their venom couldn't pierce him. him. Their strength meant nothing. Vikir's eyes darkened. This wasn't fear. This was experience. He had killed far worse in his past life. Far more dangerous things. He tightened his grip. Mana began to circulate. Within a newborn body, something impossible awakened. Light flickered around his hands. A faint aura. A level of strength most children wouldn't reach for another 8 years. The snakes froze. Instinctively, they felt it. Predator before prey. Drift. One twist. Then another. The sound of breaking bone echoed faintly. The two bloody mambas went limp. The silence returned to the nursery. The next day, the entire Baskerville estate was in chaos. Guardian knights rushed into the nursery, and there it was, Vikir, smiling softly, holding two dead bloody mambas in his tiny hands. Even the hardened knights froze. The bloody mamba, a rare venomous creature from the La Rogue Mountains, a monster that should never have been inside a nursery. Within minutes, news reached the main castle, and Hugo Le Baskerville himself arrived. What followed was brutal. Nanas were interrogated, then executed. Security was reinforced across the nursery, but the truth was never found because no one could believe the real answer. No one suspected the child. Only one being understood what had happened. Vikir. He simply lay in his cradle, silent, patient, waiting, because this was not the time for exposure. Not yet. Not revenge. Only preparation. A hound does not bark before the hunt begins. It waits and remembers. Then time began to pass, and 8 years passed in silence. 8 years had passed. Vikir van Baskerville was now 8 years old, and like every child in the Baskerville family, he was undergoing formal education inside Fang Castle. The classroom was quiet, controlled, hardened, just like the family itself. The instructor asked calmly, "Final question. How do we classify the levels of a swordsman?" Without hesitation, Vikir answered, precise, as if he had lived this question before. A swordsman who cannot infuse mana into a blade is a sword beginner. A swordsman who can channel mana into the tip of the sword, but only produces weak gaseous aura, is a sword expert. When that aura becomes dense, sticky, and liquid-like, it is called sword graduate. And when it solidifies into a physical form that can be shaped at will, that is sword master. The classroom burst into chatter. Children echoed the classification excitedly, competing with each other. Beginners lose to experts. Experts lose to graduates. Graduates lose to masters. And the head of the house is a master. At that moment, a single thought pierced Vikir's mind like a blade. The head of the house. Hugo Le Baskerville. A sword master. One of only 7 in the entire kingdom. A being who stood at the pinnacle of swordsmanship. The instructor confirmed it casually. Yes, Lord Hugo is a sword master. A level reached only by the 7 strongest people in the land. Vikir remained silent, but inside, his thoughts darkened. He already knew more than this instructor, more than anyone in this room, even more than most knights of the empire, because he had lived through it once already, and he understood something very clearly. A sword master was not just strong, he was a wall he would eventually have to break. The instructor glanced at Vikir with admiration. A genius. That was the only word that fit him. A child who once survived the cradle of swords at only 100 days old. A child who adapted faster than anyone expected. A child who understood everything after hearing it once. A terrifying talent. And yet, the Baskerville family still considered him average. That was the cruelty of this place. After class ended, the children slowly left the classroom, but Vikir did not move immediately. He stood still, thinking. Hugo is a sword master. Then my current level is still not enough. His grip tightened slightly, not out of fear, but determination. In this life, he would not die meaninglessly again. At the very least, before the coming of age ceremony, he would reclaim everything he had once lost. Currently, he was 8 years old, and already he had reached the level of a sword expert. Advanced stage, a level most children in this family only reached in their 20s. In his previous life, he had not even properly awakened mana at this age. Now, he had reached a stage that would normally mark him as a genius among geniuses. But here in Baskerville, it was still considered average. No praise, no recognition, only expectations and pressure. Then a voice came from behind. Hey, Vikir turned slowly. 3 children stood there. Triplets, Hyvro, Myvro, Wovro, direct descendants of the Baskerville bloodline, true lineage, and future enemies. Vikir's eyes narrowed slightly, because he remembered them very clearly. The ones who would one day hunt him down relentlessly. The ones who would corner him when he tried to escape. The ones who would stab him in the back during missions. Even as children, they had already begun. Hey, trash. Hyvro sneered. Where are you going? The other 2 repeated after him. Where are you going? Where are you going? Childish, but dangerous. Because in Baskerville, even children killed each other before becoming adults. Vikir said nothing, but inside, a memory surfaced. The trident of Hugo Baskerville. 3 blades that would one day become a serious threat. And here they were, already forming. Hyvro stepped forward. You said you soaked in the sticks for 7 minutes and strangled 2 venomous snakes in the cradle. He laughed. Stop lying. An 8-year-old like you. Impossible. Then Lovro stepped behind him. A hand covered Vikir's mouth. Another covered his nose. Let us see, Hyvro said with a grin. Can you really hold your breath for 7 minutes like they say? Let us see. B. Let us see. Pressure increased. Slowly, deliberately, they were testing him, breaking him, waiting for panic, waiting for struggle. 1 minute passed, then 2. But Vikir did not move, not even a flinch. 3 minutes. 4, 5. The smiles began to fade. 6 minutes. The room felt heavier. 7 minutes. Silence. Only breathing from the triplets, not from Vikir. 8 minutes. 9, 10. Nothing. No struggle. No panic. No weakness. Just calm, cold eyes staring back at them. A creeping unease filled the room. What is this kid? He is not breathing. Impossible. Lovro shook his head violently. No, he is breathing. He has to be. But the truth was undeniable. Vikir was still conscious, still staring, still waiting, like a predator studying prey. And then Hyvro forced a nervous laugh. All right, enough. Let him go. The pressure loosened just a little. Lovro removed his hand, and the moment he did, a sudden scream shattered the silence. Blood splatter. Lovro's finger was gone, torn apart in an instant. Vikir calmly chewed, then swallowed, then spoke softly. You said you would cut my finger off. He smiled. Blood stained his lips. The room froze. The triplets' expressions twisted. Not fear. Not yet. Confusion. Denial. Ever. This is nothing. Hyvro shouted, but his voice cracked. Even he did not believe it. Lovro screamed while holding his hand. My finger. My finger. Chaos erupted. The unity of the trident broke for the first time. They were no longer one blade. They were just children. Bleeding. Panicking. Falling apart. Hyvro grabbed Lovro. We will go to the infirmary. The priest can fix it. But the door did not open because someone was standing there. Vikir, blocking the exit. Who said you could leave? Hyvro's expression twisted. Before he could finish, a fist hit his face. His nose collapsed instantly. Blood sprayed. He fell. Myro reacted next, but a kick snapped his jaw sideways. He collapsed without even understanding what happened. Silence returned. Only broken breathing. Only pain. Only fear. Vikir stepped forward slowly, then sat near the door, looking down at them. Within 1 hour, he said calmly, you will need proper treatment. Otherwise, the damage will be permanent. If pause, but looking at you, I do not think you will be leaving this room today. The triplets trembled. For the first time, they felt something unfamiliar. Not pain, not anger, fear, pure fear. Hyvro tried one last time. He pulled out a dagger and stabbed forward. The blade struck Vikir's chest, but it did not penetrate. It bent slightly, then slipped off as if hitting steel. His skin darkened for a moment, then returned to normal. The protection of the river Styx. Absolute defense. A body forged in sacred waters. Hyvro froze. What? That single word was all he could manage. And then Vikir's second strike shattered his remaining teeth. He collapsed completely, drooling, trembling, broken. All 3 triplets were now on the floor. Everything mixed together. A dagger fell between them, but no one moved. No one dared touch it, because instinct screamed the truth. Touch it, and die worse. Then Vikir spoke again. There is only one of you who will leave this room alive. The triplets froze. Their eyes widened. Vikir's answer was simple. It is up to you. A silence fell, heavy, suffocating, and then their eyes slowly shifted toward the dagger. At that moment, something inside the trident cracked. Not bone, not flesh, but trust, unity, brotherhood. Everything began to split, and for the first time in Bakerville history, the trident of Hugo Bakerville began to break from within. John Barrymore, a butler who had served the Baskerville family faithfully for 4 generations, and today, he stood before the patriarch himself. Hugo Le Baskerville, the Iron-Blooded Sword, one of the 7 pillars of national salvation, a man whose name alone could silence entire battlefields. Barrymore bowed slightly. My lord, I will present today's report. Master Vikir ranked first in the written evaluation of early childhood education. For the first time, Hugo's eyes shifted slightly. He stroked his chin, a rare gesture, satisfaction, recognition. Barrymore noticed immediately. The patriarch remembered the child's name. That alone was unusual. Then Hugo spoke. When is the practical test for the children? In 5 days. Most guardian knights have already left Fang Castle to prepare. Then the castle must be empty. Barrymore hesitated again. That is correct. But there is something else. There was a major conflict among the young heirs. Hugo immediately asked, how many died? Barrymore answered carefully, no one died, but Master Hyvro lost all his teeth, Master Myvro's jaw was fractured, and Master Lovro lost his right index finger. A pause. All have been healed. Hugo relaxed. Then it is nothing serious. Sibling fights are natural. He flipped through documents casually. They are close in age. It is expected. Barrymore added carefully, the conflict was not among themselves. Hugo's eyes narrowed. It was with another child. Hugo clicked his tongue lightly. Foolish. Attacking others without knowing the strength balance. Then Barrymore spoke again. The opponent was younger. A silence. Hugo leaned forward slightly. So the entire class of 8-year-olds attacked them? No. Then what? Barrymore's voice lowered. One child. Hugo's eyes sharpened instantly. One child. As who? Barrymore answered. The first place in the written evaluation. Master Vikir. Silence. For the first time in the conversation, Hugo became completely still. Vikir von Baskerville, 8 years old, now standing inside the deepest chamber of the mansion, a room few children ever entered. The patriarch's audience chamber. The air was heavy, pressurized, like standing inside a blade. Hugo sat across from him. Sif, no emotion, no warmth, just authority. Vikir obeyed calmly, but inside, he was calculating every breath, every movement, every possible outcome. He knew this presence well. Hugo Le Baskerville, a sword master, a monster disguised as a man. Vikir concealed his mana carefully, not perfectly, but enough. I can hide it for now, but not forever. Then Hugo spoke. You have grown. A simple sentence, but strange, because in his past life, Hugo never spoke like this, never observed, never acknowledged. He only evaluated, like livestock. Vikir replied carefully. Greetings, Patriarch. Hugo paused slightly. Patriarch. He repeated the word like it was unfamiliar, then moved on. I heard you crippled 3 boys. Vikir replied calmly. They received proper treatment. I am not talking about their bodies. Hugo's gaze sharpened. I am talking about their minds. It paused. They no longer function together. They fear you. Vikir said nothing, then spoke calmly. Carrying 3 unstable blades is inefficient. Hugo's eyes flickered. Interesting. He leaned forward slightly. But tell me, was it wrong? Beating your brothers. Vikir tilted his head, as if the concept itself was strange. Why would it be wrong? Hugo narrowed his eyes. You injured them. Vikir answered without hesitation. I am stronger. Silence. A long one. Then Vikir continued. How can strength be wrong? The words landed like a blade. Symbol. Unshakable. Hugo stared at him. For the first time in years, something like amusement appeared. The corners of his mouth twitched. Not anger, not disappointment, but something far more dangerous. Interest. Because in front of him was not just a child, not just a genius, but something shaped exactly like himself. A belief carved into flesh. Strength is justice. Weakness is sin. And Hugo Le Baskerville slowly smiled. Vikir knew exactly what kind of man Hugo Le Baskerville was. A cold-blooded creature. A man who treated people like weapons, and weapons like extensions of his will. A man who believed mercy was just weakness wearing a prettier name. In Vikir's mind, there was no confusion, only clarity, a truth carved into his second life. Hugo was not a father. He was a judge of utility, a predator who only valued what could survive. Vikir looked at him calmly. My brothers were wrong. Hugo's gaze sharpened slightly. And why is that? Because they were weak. Silence. A world where weakness is sin. That was Baskerville's law, not written in books, but engraved into blood. Hugo did not react immediately. He only observed, measuring. Wait, then he spoke slowly. Your brothers were here first. They forgave you. Vikir did not answer right away. Forgiveness. A word that meant nothing in this family. Because in Baskerville, forgiveness was just a polite way of saying you survived for now. Then Vikir replied quietly. It is fine if they are afraid. It paused. Hugo's eyes narrowed. Then he laughed. Low at first, then louder. The sound echoed through the chamber like a cracking stone. Ha ha. Even the glass in the room seemed to tremble. Hugo leaned back in his chair, genuinely amused. This is it. This is what my child should be. It was the first time in both his lives that Vikir had seen Hugo smile like this. Not as a commander, not as a patriarch, but as someone pleased. Then Hugo turned. Barrymore. The butler immediately stepped forward. Yes, my lord. Give him the key to the food storage. A brief silence fell. Even Barrymore hesitated. Because in Baskerville, food was not comfort, it was control. Children were raised on the same tasteless ration until 15. Water, habits, nothing more. Anything sweet was not nourishment, it was reward, a tool of motivation. And chocolate was the highest form of reward a child could receive. Hugo looked at Vikir. Is there anything you want? Vikir answered immediately, like a child. Chocolate. Hugo's eyes softened slightly, as if confirming something in his mind. So you do have the instincts of your age. Barrymore smiled faintly as well. Hugo gestured. Give him as much as he can carry. Yes, my lord. Barrymore took Vikir's hand, and they left. The cold corridors of Fang Castle stretched ahead. Deep beneath the kitchen, a hidden storage chamber waited. The air changed the moment they entered. Heavy, reserved. Inside were supplies for the entire household, but Vikir was not interested in most of it. Barrymore guided him gently. Candies and jellies are here, young master. If you want anything prepared, the chefs can arrange it. Vikir shook his head. Only chocolate. Barrymore smiled kindly. In a few years, you can eat as much as you want. The chefs nearby nodded and stepped forward. This is premium chocolate from House Morgue territory, refined with nuts and honey. But Vikir interrupted. I do not need processed ones. Pardon. A brief silence. Then Vikir continued. I need cocoa beans. The room paused. Barrymore blinked. Raw beans. A chef stepped forward quickly. Those are extremely bitter, young master. Barrymore added carefully. They are not meant to be eaten directly. But Vikir's expression did not change. I know. He extended his hand. I want the strongest kind. A pause. Then Barrymore nodded. There is one type. Bloody beans. At that name, even the chef stiffened slightly. A single single bean can produce hundreds of liters of chocolate when processed. Vikir's eyes sharpened. Bring them. Soon, a small leather pouch was placed in front of him, barely the size of 2 fists, filled with deep, crimson beans, like dried drops of blood. Vikir picked one up and bit into it. The bitterness exploded instantly. Astringent, almost violent. The chefs flinched. Barrymore looked worried, but Vikir slowly spat it out and smiled faintly. Barrymore tilted his head. He really likes chocolate, but something did not add up, because this was not consumption. It was inspection. Test him. Measuring. Barrymore stepped forward carefully. Shall we process them and send them to your room? Vikir shook his head. No need. It paused. This is enough. Silence. The meaning was unclear, but one thing was certain. The child who had asked for chocolate was not thinking like a child at all, and somewhere in the depths of Fang Castle, something had just begun to shift again. In the Baskerville family, children are not raised, they are forged. Twice a year, until the age of 15, every child is tested, midterm and final, but calling them tests is misleading, because in Baskerville, they are closer to survival trials disguised as education, a place where failure does not mean bad grades. It means death. From infancy, the children are conditioned like weapons. They run across endless arenas and steep hills until their legs collapse. They are not allowed to rest outside designated time. Guardian Knights do not act as teachers. They act as sculptors, carving bodies, shaping instincts. Even sleep is not safe. Children are made to rest beside monster corpses, so that fear itself becomes familiar. By the age of 8, real training begins. Meals are no longer meals. They become survival rations. Boiled bone broth, compressed meat, dry jerky strong enough to last weeks. And today, 8 and 9-year-old Baskerville children arrived at a place called La Rouge Mountain, a wasteland of burnt red earth, dry winds scraping against dead trees, a land where even the soil feels hostile. The Guardian Knight spoke calmly. You have been given badges. From the moment you enter, stealing is allowed. Each badge is points. Hunting monsters also gives points. Survive or eliminate others. Both are acceptable. Then came the final rule. If you die, your score becomes 0. It paused, but at that point, scoring no longer matters. The children went silent. Some swallowed hard, some trembled, but one boy did not move at all. Vikir von Baskerville, 8 years old, standing perfectly still, like he was not a participant, but an observer, because to him, this place was familiar. Too familiar. La Rouge Mountain, a place he had once entered as a student, and returned to as an instructor, and survived as something far worse, a hunting dog. And now he had come back again, but this time, from the beginning, around him, the other children began to panic. This place is insane. I cannot believe we have to stay here a month. Fear spread quickly, but fear is not equally distributed in Baskerville. Because for the 9-year-olds, this was not their first time, and for them, the real objective was not survival. It was domination, stealing badges, raking rivals, eliminating threats, and naturally, their eyes turned to one boy. Vikir. Is that him? The kid who stayed in sticks for 7 minutes. They say he killed snakes as a newborn. Let us see how special he really is. Whispers spread like poison, but something strange happened. 3 figures remained silent. Hyvro, Myvro, Lovro, the so-called future trident of Baskerville. Not laughing, not mocking, just watching, carefully, quietly, like predators remembering pain. Then someone stepped forward. Hey bastard, you think you are special? Survive here if you can. Let us see that genius of yours. More voices joined in. You are nothing here. You will break in a day. Vikir finally spoke. On the other, I do not think I am special. It paused. Then he continued. You are just too weak. Silence. Then explosion. You little. I will kill you. I will tear him apart myself. The children of Baskerville reacted exactly as expected. Provoked instantly. Controlled by pride. Driven by rage. Like sparks in dry grass. Vikir watched them quietly, without emotion, because he had seen this before. Countless times. In war. In blood. In death. And a bell echoed across the mountain. Clear. Show. Final. Havla van Baskerville, the Guardian Knight instructor, stood with his hand lowered. The signal had been given. The test had begun. And in La Rouge Mountain, only one rule mattered. Survive or be erased. In the Baskerville family, practical tests are not events. They are rituals of violence, and they happen several times a day. That single sound is enough to flip the minds of children into hunters. Instinct awakens instantly. Survival mode activates, and across La Rouge Mountain, the game begins. 9-year-old children surge forward. 8-year-olds follow immediately behind. Some run blindly. Some calculate routes. Some use others as bait. Because in Baskerville, even children learn early. Strength is not enough. Only deception and survival matter. The triplets move as well. Hyvro, Myvro, Lovro. Their voices overlap. Go there. Do not tell me what to do. I'm telling you because you cannot think for yourself. Even at 9 years old, They are already predators. Children fall across the mountain, some from cliffs, some from ambush, some from fear, some from betrayal, and the forest swallows them without hesitation. Phlegm. Steel clashes in the distance, not swords of death, but blunt blades of training. In Baskerville, killing is discouraged, but never truly forbidden, only calculated. A death lowers points, but a clean elimination is sometimes worth the cost. But one boy does not join the chaos. Vikir von Baskerville. He moves differently, not toward opponents, but away from them, deeper into the wasteland, beyond the boundary, beyond observation, beyond safety. The Guardian Knights watch from afar. He is hiding. Is he planning to survive without fighting? Disappointing. Their interest fades, because to them, this is cowardice. A child digging a hole to avoid conflict. But they are wrong. Very wrong. Deep underground, Vikir sits calmly. Inside his dugout pit, a cradle made of earth. Above him, war. Below him, silence. He roasts a rat over fire and thinks, not about fear, not about survival, but memory. Hazard class F, edible if properly cooked. Even monsters have classifications in his mind, because in his past life, knowledge was survival, and survival was everything. Then he pauses, listening. The forest above has gone quiet. The observers have left. Perfect. Now, the real work begins. Vikir stands and begins building. Wooden spears, dozens, then hundreds, pointed downward, like the jaws of something waiting to bite. A trap not for humans. Not yet. Then he steps out, crossing the boundary, entering the forbidden zone, where even Guardian Knights hesitate, where maps end, and death begins. The forest here is burned black, twisted roots, collapsed trees, caves that look like throats leading underground. Even seasoned hunters avoid this place, but Vikir walks like he belongs, because once he did. Then he stops, a smell, running, rotting, if he follows it, until he finds it, a pile of scorched waste, still smoldering, and nearby, something moves. B+ rank monster, 3 meters of pure instinct, eyes burning like embers, a creature that does not negotiate, only hunts, and destroys. It notices him instantly, and charges. Want to see what happens next? Part 2 is coming soon. Subscribe now and join us for the next chapter.